this is kind of maybe a dumb question, but it's also maybe a big question. How will elections be carried out? You said that the legislation simply says that homeowners will elect 3.
Right.
From
It's the
their camp.
petitioner's responsibility to facilitate elections. What I would see happening is, as we come, close to the point of adopting, if we move forward and we don't see, the petition coming near 25% or anything like that, and I believe we have enough support that you're not going to see anything like that come your way. So if we make that assumption that we're 60 days after petition process, we would start to create the information flow out to homeowners to say, provided this passes on this date, then we would hold elections on this date. That would still be, I believe, it's another 60-day window after that. Don't quote me on that. I don't have the dates in front of me. I should have brought them, but I don't have them. But we've already begun to say, if you're interested, please let it be known. I've had one homeowner approach me with official interest, someone from Loggers Run, who said that he would like to be on the board. And one of the things that I've agreed to do with the organizing committee has been we won't do bylaws, but we will run through what would bylaws need to cover, as a group, and list a lot of those issues out so that members could see those things. And then we would put down, to the best of our ability to think of it up, what might the positions be on that. And then candidates would have those issues, because this first board is the most important board that this thing will ever have, right? And then allow people who are running and people who are going to vote to know what the issues might be and to state positions on those issues. And then we would facilitate a meeting at Snowshoe on a date where people could come in. We have to facilitate proxy voting. Right, and again, everybody gets to name 3 names, and the top 3 cumulative name getters, vote getters, become the elected representative.
Okay.
What are the boundaries?
Sorry?
What are your boundaries?
Excellent question. The boundaries would be the boundary of Snowshoe Resort, with the exception that on the southern boundary, we would cut off everything south of Route 66. Really, it came down to, there is an HOA down there who does not currently pay into the mountaintop assessment. If we were to include them, it essentially sort of says, well, you're welcome to our services even though you don't pay. Yeah. So should they want to be part of it down the road, and the district wants to provide those services, which I think we'd be open to having those conversations. If we get to that position, then we would sit down and say, okay, so you'd like to have these rangers protect your property as well. How will you contribute to making that happen? But so it cuts off at 66, and then aside from that, it's the resort outer boundary.
I have one more question, then I'll hand it over to one of the other commissioners. List of eligible voters. How is it determined who can vote in this?
If you own property of any nature, you can vote for board members. Now, there are classes of voting. There's a residential class of voting. If I'm correct right now, we have 1,995 residences within the boundary. So there will be 1,995 votes times 3 cast for that class with a homeowner representative. Yes. There are, and again, I'm using my recollection of where we've been calculating this, and like I said, staring at tax maps going, what is that? Who owns, and trying to figure out who everything is. There are about 550 undeveloped properties, unimproved properties. Those could be anything from a half-acre lot to, we have one lot that I believe in itself is about 2,500 acres, but it's one lot, one vote for undeveloped property. And then there are 3 dozen or so commercial properties at the mountain. So each one of those votes for the commercial representative. There's
roughly 3 dozen.
yeah, and we will, when we bring the petition to you, those numbers will be clear, right? And we will provide you with a list of the legal owner of every piece of property, their local address on the mountain, why they get a vote, and their address of tax record, where they receive their tax bill, which we get from the assessors, right? So, because these notices have to be mailed to that address, right? It has to be mailed. Any public notice that we provide has to be mailed to that address where they receive their tax bill. That's how we make sure everybody's informed. So, and then the resort positions are elected by the resort. So, you know, for all intents and purposes, I'll make those decisions on those 2 seats.
That's all the questions I have at this point. Give time to some others. Commissioner Walker, Commissioner Beard, do you have questions at this stage?
Well, you get a lot of them. I was going to ask. Appreciate you coming, Mr. Barry.
No, thanks for having
What about the hotel motel tax? Will that impact it?
No, the existence of the district in no way impacts the hotel motel tax.
That's a good point to make, to
So
clarify.
they don't
So
have
the-
any right to change that, or?
They literally have, it's not a political subdivision of any sort. And you guys, the county, there's a 6% allowed hotel motel tax. You guys have collected that limit. I say you guys, I apologize. That's the county, you know, collects that 6%. We don't have the ability to take any of that away, nor add to it.
Thank you for pointing out. It's important to note that this has nothing to do with hotel motel tax and can't affect you in any way.
To the dismay
Mr.
of
Alden,
some
thank you
property
for
owners
bringing
at the mountain, right?
As far as the representation from the residents or the homeowners, say there's roughly 2,000 people, 1995. Is there a percentage of them that has to physically vote on that, or can, say, 500 of them people vote and elected 3 people?
It's you know, the top vote getters of the people who choose to vote.
So how all can that vote be cast? Is that mail-in, be there in person, call
Yeah,
in?
it's legally allowed via proxy, mail, or electronic voting. I don't have the means to set up electronic voting right now. I'm not sure how to effectively do that, but it's in the law to allow it. The initial election, we have proposed to set up certainly in person or proxy voting.
They'll just be on paper ballot.
Yeah.
And who will physically count that and determine that? Does Snowshoe do that, or does homeowners get involved in that too, or?
I cannot answer I cannot knowledgeably give you an answer as to what the law says on that, if it says anything. I have no need to, no desire to be, secretive about this. So, if we need to, if the county wanted to have a representative there, the county could have a representative. Certainly, homeowner represent, whatever the right way to do that is. I'd rather not do it behind closed doors because I don't want to leave any, suspicion that we tried to pull something.
Well, as far as candidates for that, is that going to be by recommendation or by the candidate themselves coming forward?
You have to be
or?
nominated, and so any candidate who is nominated, and a nomination is as simple as, I nominate so-and-so.
Nominate oneself, right?
You could nominate yourself. There's nothing forbidding that.
So there will be no limit to the amount of candidates then?
No.
Top 3 vote getters.
Top 3 vote getters.
This
It's
is
a
also-
second home community, so, you're not going to have the same kind of interest in candidacy that you might have in where everybody lives here, and that's just the nature of a second home
Well,
community.
what about, I know like in most elections, they have the little write-in at the bottom. Is that going to be another option on there also? or-
I do not have I can't say, there has to be a nomination. if there's if a write-in vote can count as a legal nomination for everybody, then the answer would be yes, but I don't know what the answer to that question is. So I would have to find out the answer to that question.
I have a question about the voting, just as
Mr.
while you guys
Willis?
are talking about it. If you don't vote, if you don't cast a vote, you don't send a vote in, you don't call a vote in, will your count on your unit you own, will it just go in favor of the RAD?
Okay, that's different. You're talking about whether or not the RAD can be formed? Is that what?
Yeah, let's say there's 25% of there's a movement to go back and change the RAD or improve it before it actually becomes law. Somebody goes out and decides to vote against it. My question is you said 25% of the number of, use the number 2,600 or 19 and change. If you vote for it, yes. If you vote against it, no. But if you don't cast a vote at all, is that not counted or counted in
Well,
favor?
the formation of the RAD, if I may, challenge my understanding of this so far. Before any voting would happen, the 60 days would have to pass. Mr. DeBerry would petition the county commission, and then a 60-day clock starts, and then counter petition will be filed, and if there's 25% of this, of what exactly, maybe another question, says we don't want this, then the county commission has no legal authority to create the RAD, and it's over.
So basically,
but if the RAD gets created after that 60 days, then the voting goes forward, and the question of whether there'll be a RAD is over. There will be a RAD at that point, if that's the way it goes. Is that right? So the voting is in favor of the candidates or not the candidates on the board, but the board would be created at this point.
If you want to dissent against the formation of the resort area district, you must sign the petition against the formation of the resort area district. So it's a petition against. It's
Okay,
not,
so it has to be 500 or 600, whatever 25% is of that total number.
right.
It can't be 25% of the 1,400 people that voted in favor or against.
There's no election process should there be a RAD over whether or not there should be a RAD. There's a petition process.
Gotcha.
We'll petition for it, and then if there are 650, if properties representing 600, signatures representing 650 of those properties are submitted against it, it's done. If not, the county can create it.
Gotcha. That answers my question.
Mr. Barrett, I have a clarification question about the 650 being 25% of 2,600. What was the 2,600 again? Was that hypothetical or?
That is the approximate total number of properties on the mountain, individual properties.
So if you add up the classes of voters, residential, you said there's approximately 1,995.
Mm-hmm.
And you add to the undeveloped the 550. And you add to the commercial approximately 3 dozen. That's the number you're saying is total 2,600, or is that a different metric?
That's the number that, so 2,000, 2,300, it's 23 and change.
So basically,
1,900 plus 550 is 20.
I guess my real question is, instead of specific numbers, it's that you have the 25% on a counter petition is of the 100% of all the classes of voters combined.
Yeah.
That's really what
Yes. Yeah. 25% of the prospective member properties of the district. There's no further breakdown of that.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions before we hand it over to the people in attendance to ask some questions or to make some?
I've got a note here. We were talking about capital raise like borrowing or bonds.
Mm-hmm.
And you said it would be a one-time assessment. Is that above and beyond the mountaintop assessment?
That would be, yeah. If the board elected to raise a special assessment, that would be beyond the mountaintop assessment that's contributed today.
Would you say one time? I mean,
It's one time. It can only be for a capital project, and a one-time, literally, I would have to say, we want to do the walking path that runs the summit, right? It's going to cost, I really need to just get the math in my head so that I'm not trying to make this up every time I say it, but, so let's say that's going to cost $50,000. I've committed specifically to Ira that we would never do a project unless we have 25% of our funds available through operating. So that knocks you down to $37.50, still to be figured out, right? Then the district would have to say, well, where do we get the rest of that $37.50? It is my, hope and my direction as to where I'd like to see this board go, that we would use, the reserve funding to create that. And there would be no borrowing, no assessment, nothing like that. If we, the example, allow me to switch examples. Powder Ridge Road, because they brought this up. The district goes and says, looking at our reserve funding, we will be able to redo Powder Ridge Road in 10 years, right? To the same level of finish that it's done today. If the owners of those associations say, well, we